Hello! It is 3 minutes and counting to the end of November. I am conceding it is the end of the month. My reading for November is now over. Yeah, so I did finish some of the stack of books I started with. As a matter of fact, I only have 3 left in that stack. So, these are the only ones left unfinished from this morning's stack. I feel pretty good about that. So, December does include these 3 books: Wastelands, short story collection edited by John Joseph Adams, A History of Witchcraft by Jeffrey Russell. Yes. And Seeing Science, which is a really cool book, and I don't mind at all reading it over this next month. It's by Jack Challoner. This one's like a picture book about how you visualize science concepts, or how we visualize science concepts. All sorts of really cool pictures and ideas. Anyway, those are the only 3 books from this morning that I didn't finish. So, the ones I did finish: An Essay on Liberation by Herbert Marcuse. This one I was hoping to get rid of. I really was. And I still might eventually, but it doesn't take up a lot of space on my shelf. And if I ever get back into doing theory, which is likely actually, unfortunately, it has some useful stuff. If only because a lot of people do read Marcuse. So a lot of current theorists are at least referencing Marcuse. So I probably should have some on my shelf, just, for reference, if nothing else. And he does have passages that are good. So I'm going to read a little bit. This a priori linguistic definition hits first the enemy abroad, the defense of his own land, his own hut, his own naked life is a crime. The supreme crime which deserves the supreme punishment. Long before the special and not so special forces are physically trained to kill, burn, and interrogate, their minds and bodies are already desensitized to see and hear and smell in the other, not a human being, but a beast. A beast, however, which is subject to all-out punishment. The linguistic pattern consistently repeats itself. Okay. The linguistic universe, which incorporates the enemy as Untermensch into the routine of everyday speech, can be transcended only in action, for violence is built into the very structure of this society as the accumulated aggressiveness which drives the business of life in all branches of corporate capitalism, as the legal aggression on the highways, and as the national aggression abroad, which seems to become more brutal the more it takes as its victims the wretched of the earth, those who have not yet been civilized by the capital of the free world. In the mobilization of this aggressiveness, ancient psychical forces, ancient psychical forces are activated to serve the economic political needs of the system. The enemy are those who are unclean, infested. They are animals rather than humans. They are contagious, and threaten the clean, anesthetized, healthy, free world. They must be liquidated, smoked out, and burned out like venom. Their infested jungles, too, must be burned out and cleared for freedom and democracy. The enemy already has its fifth column inside the clean world. The commies and the hippies and their like, with the long hair and the beards and the dirty pants. Those who are promiscuous and take liberties which are denied to the clean and orderly, who remain clean and orderly even when they kill and bomb and burn. Never perhaps since the Middle Ages has accumulated repression erupted on such global scale in organized aggression against those outside the repressive system. Outsiders within and without. So, he is well spoken, although some of that, I'm not so sure about the corporate capitalism bit in there. I'm not sure that the one necessitates the other, and but, yeah. And he also is referencing Frantz Fanon and The Wretched of the Earth. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to keep this one just because it's part of that bigger dialogue within political theory. So, oh well. But I did reread it and definitely didn't get the same things out of it that I did before. I don't know exactly what I got out of it before, but I don't remember grumbling at the same things. So, it's always interesting reading theorists after a decade or more has elapsed. Anyway, so I finished that one. I finished Poor Folk and Other Stories. The Other Stories part is what I hadn't finished as of this morning, so this one's done now. And then the other ones that I've finished recently, I finished the Asimov science fiction from June 1998, which I had a couple stories still to finish in. And then I also finished a few other books recently that I will show off as part of what I finished this November, now that I've concluded November. So I finished Raymond Chandler, The Simple Art of Murder. This one was short stories by Raymond Chandler, and they're not, his more mature work. So it was interesting to see some of the themes from his novels starting to be worked out in short story format. I really enjoyed this memoir, Dispatches from the Edge by Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper is actually about my age, somewhere in there. No, he's old enough he could have been my babysitter, that's right. So he's kind of not the next generation, but a couple years older than me. Anyway, one of those reporters that I generally have confidence in. So if he's reporting on something, overseas where not everybody's to be trusted, probably what he's saying he's being honest about and fact-checking. I do value reporters like that. But this is his memoir. He has an interesting past, a very famous mother, and the kind of rough childhood that nobody really expects the children of famous people to have. But I would suspect a lot of children of famous people have really rough childhoods. Maybe not like his, but it was an interesting memoir, and he talks a lot about some of the places he did reporting from and how he became a reporter that covered war and, major disasters. So that's always interesting. I actually finished several sci-fi magazines, so I finished this one as well. This is Analog from July 1989. I I'm still looking for the one that has the story I really liked. If I remembered the name of the story or the author, I could just look it up. But since I don't, I have to read through all the sci-fi fantasy magazines I have until I find the story, because I doubt we got rid of it. It's probably in my stack somewhere, but I have no idea which story it is. All I remember is little bits and pieces that are vague. I'll know it when I read it. I finished my book on the Roman world. So Transformation of the Roman World is a set of papers by different people who all received funding through the same granting program. So some of these are really good, really well written, readable. Some of them not so much, and the last couple are not really papers. They're more catalogs of things that are on display without a lot of pictures. So the first part of this is great. I think they missed out on, having a product they could sell beyond just this publication time. Because if they'd made those catalogs just a little more interesting after the fact, more pictures basically, something where there's a reason to look at it when the displays are no longer up and you're not in that area anyway, this would be the kind of book that you might just keep it on your shelf along with all your other books about Roman stuff if you like Roman stuff. It does have some nice pictures, but way too much of it is not really thought out for the general public or the specialist general public reader. So, I don't know. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. But some of it wasn't really 4-star material. But overall, it was good. And it was a nice, span of the centuries near the end of the Roman Empire as we know it, where things are getting bigger and getting more complicated, and that one cohesive empire isn't quite holding together anymore. And all sorts of interesting things happen. So, yeah, that was pretty good. I finished The Fossil World. This one was one I was trying to read last month, October. The Roman World one as well. I think I started in October. Anyway, so both of those are done. The Fossil World was fun. Again, very nerdy. And some of it I didn't read all that closely because the taxonomy of mollusks and crustaceans and things in the deep sea has changed a lot since this book was published. So knowing that, I didn't really focus so heavily on those sections because it's not actually what those things are called anymore, and we know a little bit more about how they're related to modern things, and but it still has a lot of good information. Definitely dated, but not so much that if you're just a layperson reading about deep sea fossils, you wouldn't get something out of it. Certainly, it shows how like crinoids and bivalves and things like that work. Always fun stuff. And some good pictures. I was able to kind of figure out what kind of trilobite I have on my shelf, which it's kind of fun. And then the last book I'm going to show off for books I finished is The Wartime Letters of Rainer Maria Rilke. This one I'm keeping. It was my 5-star read for November. It was really good. Some of the letters later on weren't quite as compelling just because I wasn't really into the topic. And he gets into more, thinking about the arts and about his role in the arts and other people's roles in the arts, and the arts following World War I. And not quite as, universally relatable, I guess. But the first part where he's really talking about the war and his experiences during the war, and how he's feeling about the war, he's just really articulate about that kind of stuff in a way that is very relatable. And the other stuff is good too. I'm just not in that mindset right now. So I will definitely be keeping this one, at least for a while. I might reread it and then pass it on to a sibling, but for now, I am keeping it. So those are all books that I finished in November. I finished others that I had to turn in that were library books or that I've already handed off to siblings. But I think my total came to 15 or 16 books for November, which was pretty good. I will be finishing House of the Dead this weekend as an audiobook. So I will finish that and it will be done. Let me see here. So the books I'm carrying over into December from November, that are in my TBR for this coming week, for the first week of December, are North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is one that was the monthly pick for one of the book clubs that one of the booktubers I follow is doing. And I was going to read it, and I never got to it. So I will finish it soon and still participate in the Discord chat when I finish it. Yeah, so that's for Miss Reads a Lot, her book club. So I will be finishing this probably this week and maybe as an audiobook. Nice thing about these old ones is there's probably a LibriVox recording, sometimes more than one. And even if they're really the best audiobooks sometimes, if you set them a little bit faster and just leave them to listen to while crocheting or something, usually your brain starts to edit out the weirdness and just hears the words. Sometimes they're really bad. There were a couple that the readers' accents were just so heavy that you really couldn't understand half of what they said. And then the audio quality on those was also really poor. So it sounded like someone who could barely speak English being recorded on a record. Yeah, so I try to be generous about LibriVox recordings because when I start recording them, if and when I ever do, they won't be, top-notch recordings either. It's all volunteers. But sometimes they really just aren't very helpful. So I don't really know the quality of the one that's up for North and South, but I could have sworn there is one. So that will probably be how I approach that one. I'm definitely doing The House of the Dead as an audiobook. I actually am listening to it from the same guy that did the audio reading of Poor Folk that's on YouTube, that one of the other booktubers mentioned as being pretty good when she was listening to Poor Folk, which was the monthly pick for Rating Project Gutenberg, I believe. Yeah, so that guy also did House of the Dead, and so far is pretty good. I will probably finish it in the next day or two, and then move on to North and South. And then I also am going to try and finish the Andre Norton that I sort of started this last week. A Taste of Magic. Because I've been in an Andre Norton mood enough this past month that I might be able to finish more books if I read Andre Norton. So in addition to those, this week, all the books that I already had started in October, November, basically if I've talked about it on my channel and I've not finished it, it is fair game for this week. In addition, I played this cute little game where I took the number that was the randomizer number from the Reading 1001 group on Goodreads, their TBR takedown game. So the number that was selected by their randomizer for that game was 8. So I counted down 8 in every section of books in my shelves and stacks and pulled that book, and those make up my general TBR for December. It makes a really easy way to kind of randomize the books that I'm looking at from my collection so that I notice new books. And sometimes fun things happen. So I'll show you what I ended up with. I won't talk too much about them because we're already at 21 minutes. I have Tony Hillerman's Finding Moon, which I think is Vietnam. It's one that's not the Southwest. Have Orson Scott Card, Saints. Andre Norton and Sasha Miller, Knight or Knave. Andre Norton, The Moon of Three Rings. And here's one of those amusing things. These are 2 picks from 2 different shelves. Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy. So if I wasn't going to read it from the other pick, I am going to read it from the one after. Anyway. So I haven't decided which one of these I'm actually going to read from. Probably the hardcover. I'm reading Thomas Hardy apparently. So, hopefully it's good. The universe seems to think I need to read it. The Rivals by Sheridan. This one's been on my TBR back in October. And it got picked. So, I might actually finish it. I have The Bride by Vonda McIntyre. Music for Chameleons by Truman Capote. Welcome to Hard Times by E.L. Doctorow. Trial Run by Dick Francis. The Pocketbook of American Short Stories. Modern American short stories. All right. These titles matter. When the Legends Die by Hal Borland. Disclosure by Michael Crichton. The Mood Spinners by Mary Stewart. Those Barren Leaves by Aldous Huxley. Unification, a novel by Jerry Taylor. Alright, so Star Trek novel. And it looks like they're getting a bit old, so that's pretty late in the series. The Glass Harmonica by Louise Marley. Monday Morning by Kathy Reichs. And a reread, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So those are the paperbacks that got picked. The standard, fit in a paperback shelf paperbacks. Oh, there's 2 more. They ran away. The Good Earth by Pearl Buckley. Oh my gosh. Pearless Buck. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking Buckley for. Anyway, that'll be interesting for later. The Green House by Mario Vargas Llosa. So those are my paperbacks for this month. And there's additional books stacked up behind my computer screen. So I will do another TBR in about a week and incorporate some of those. They've all been selected, but I'm going to add them in a week at a time to the active TBR. So basically for this week, from the 1st to the 7th, I can reread any of the things from the reread video. I can read the things that I've already started from November and from October, including the ones that got picked. But even if it didn't get picked, if it was already started from October or November, then it's still live for this coming week. And then those paperbacks that I showed you explicitly, and the specific books I'm carrying over, which is just 6 books. Yeah, so kind of a large TBR, but anything I don't finish in the first week carries over to the second week, and so on and so forth. Any books that I already started, obviously I don't have to start over from page 1. So even though they may be bigger books, some of them, they're not, nearly as many pages as they look. So I will probably finish some of them soon. I think a couple of them are at about halfway points. So yeah, very diverse stack of books. Some that I don't really know why I have them on my shelf. So if I start reading them and think, why the heck am I still reading this book? That's as much as I need to do. The point is not to necessarily read them cover to cover, but if I don't want to read it and I put it back on the shelf, there has to be a really good reason for putting it back on the shelf. Otherwise, it probably should go away. So that's the game. Anyway, that'll be what I'm going to be reading for the next 7 days. I will probably finish something tonight, because midnight is not my bedtime unless I really have to. So we'll see how December goes. I did lower my Goodreads goal yet again. I looked at my history of Goodreads goals, and there is enough precedent that lowering my goal to something more approachable is acceptable. So it's now at 275. I can definitely try for 275 by the end of the year. I think I'm at 240 or something like that. So we'll see. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I showed off today, what you thought of them. What are you reading in this next month? Or better yet, what are you reading in the next week? Planning a month out when it's the last month of the year can be a little tricky. I will catch you again soonish, hopefully with a video about finishing some books. Talk to you later, guys. Bye!